Committee, you're now live.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, committee members, members of administration, and members of the public. Welcome to the April 20th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting. I will call the meeting to order, and I will read the greeting to begin our evening. We are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. The peace treaties bind us all. All right, going to the agenda, we will begin with presentations. 3A, the proposed snow, ice, and control policy. Presentation will be made by Jennifer Bozo-Hudak, our Director of Operations. So, Ms. Hudak, you have the floor, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You got to call for modifications, then adopt the agenda, then you can go.
Yeah, sorry, John. I had my.
Sorry.
Thank you, John. Let me get back to you, Ms. Hudak. In a moment here. Is there any modification to the agenda for administration, please?
Thank you, Chair. Administration has no amendments to the agenda this evening.
Thank you, John, for catching that. Any modification to the agenda from any committee members? None seen. I'll ask a motion for a committee member to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. All those in favor, please use your yes buttons, please. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And we will now begin, thank you, John, with presentations. 3A, proposed snow and ice control policy. Ms. Bozo-Hudak, you have the floor yet again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening to you and committee members. Before committee today is the proposed draft snow and ice control policy for the committee to consider. The intention for bringing it forward tonight is just as a draft policy for information, and it will be formally presented at a future council meeting for approval at that time. In terms of some quick highlights to the policy, overall, it provides administration with guidelines related to winter operations and service levels. Although the MGA sections 18, 530, and 531 provide some guidance, the policy is to further clarify the framework for delivery of winter maintenance services to Beaumont. The community expects the city to deliver timely, measured, and prioritized response to winter weather conditions to support the mobility of people and goods across Beaumont. Specifically, the policy has identified the following objectives: reduction of hazardous conditions during winter, identified cooperative activities for users of the active and/or transportation networks, monitoring continuous improvement in the planning and execution of winter operations annually, provide communication to residents during winter operations, and comply with the MGA. This policy is new. However, concepts and guidelines identified in this draft were integrated, managed, and administered in the 2020-2021 development of our winter maintenance operational plan, i.e. past winter. Again, this policy is in draft form for the committee's consideration and will be brought forward to council at a later date for approval. With that brief presentation, I would be happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you, Ms. Bozo-Hudak. Are there any members of the committee willing to ask questions of our presenter, please? Councillor Hendricks, followed by Mayor Stewart.
Mr. Chair, thank you. To the admin question then, given the success of this year in snow removal and plowing and what have you, we've had a lot of compliments. What would change with this document versus what we did this year?
Committee Member Hendricks, the document wouldn't change. What would change is our winter operational plan. In other words, if there's more snow, we would remove more snow and haul. Okay, so it's the execution of it. The document itself would remain intact. It's how we would address the winter snowfall within that framework.
Okay, so question then, on our page 13 of 46, your priority 3 and priority 4 locals, and the plowing piece and the snowpack discussion. Is that dimension from the crown of the road or from the curb?
The crown of the crown.
which we, of course, have been able to show over time that that's almost unachievable in terms of the snowpack. It would be an extraordinary event that you would get to that point where you've got compaction at the crown, given that that's where the traffic generally travels, right? So, which has been a long-standing argument that I've had regarding this matter. So I'm hoping that despite these documents, and certainly there's a lot of understandings in these documents, that in true form, what happened this year will happen next year.
Yes.
That's all I'm getting at. In all the terms I've been on, this has been the best year for compliments when it comes to snow. So let's try to maintain that momentum. So thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Committee Member Hendricks. Committee Member Stewart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity. And once again, I'd like to as well offer my congratulations for the snow removal. It was an awesome year. People were very pleased, and I understand the metrics are minimums, but I don't get the, and how do we get the flavor of making sure that that's reflected, that what happened over this past season is sort of the standard we want to get to. I understand that it was a bit of a light snow year, and if we get snowed under, things might be different, but the standards that we set this year is the standard we want to see achieved going forward.
And that's why when the policy that you see in front of you, the framework was developed while we were doing our winter operations. And it will be carried forward. So this is what we have currently and we're using. This builds on whether we have more snow, because this is based on a normal winter. We had less snow this year. We were good. We had capacity in different areas. We were able to do all those kinds of matrices. And just so you know, I'll be bringing back to Committee of the Whole our KPIs that we achieved from our last winter, so that you can see that there's capacity there and that we're on the right track to maintain the same operational plans based on the policy you have in front of you.
Okay, I do appreciate that. I got two more questions, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Fire away, please.
And I apologize, I have lost the note in the notes. But I noticed that there was one line in there about blowing snow. Does that mean onto residences' properties, or is that onto city properties?
It's on city properties. The whole policy is based on publicly owned, so it's on city properties, and that's only if we have a severe winter parameter. We did it actually, I think a couple of years ago as well, where we blew snow onto school grounds at the end of it. We're not doing that anymore, but it's when our developed lands or undeveloped lands, that's where we want to be able to put some snow. If we just have a large snowfall, just to get it off the road and get the roads open.
Fair enough. Yeah, because I could see this one coming back and some residents having concerns about, oh, they're gonna go down the road and blow it onto my grass. No.
we can shore that statement up.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we can indicate publicly owned on there.
Yeah, that would be great. And my last comment tonight is in regards to trails, the priority 2 trails. Can we beef up the language surrounding a timeline on when they get completed after the priority 1s? Because it's always been the intention of council that you do the priority 1s, I think it's within 24 hours or 48, and then continue right on to priority 2. And if we could get a completion statement, a timeline for completion as part of that, maybe 48, maybe 72 hours, I don't know what's reasonable, but I'd like to see a completion statement added to that part of the policy.
The issue with that, the challenge with that is that we use the same equipment to do our sidewalks. So if we had a plethora of equipment, we could beef that up a bit more. Right now, this is at the equipment and the FTEs that we have currently without engaging further contractors involved.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I just want a simple statement saying that immediately following priority 1 completion, and we're going to complete priority 2. We're going to keep going until we're done priority 2. We're not going to stop.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not necessarily sure what that statement is, but we don't go, oh, it's Saturday, we're not going to do priority 2 trails.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I had.
Thank you, Committee Member Stewart. Those are great points. Appreciate that. Our next question will come from Committee Member Barnhart, followed by Committee Member Stout, followed by Committee Member Van Newkirk. Ms. Barnhart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Daniluk, and to the administration again. Everyone is saying good job, great job, and I would add my support to that as well. So just a few clarifications in the policy, and I won't waste anyone's time by pointing out a small little typo. I'll send that to you by email if you'd like. But the question I have is around number 5, the third paragraph, which is on page 8 out of 46. And I really read that probably 10 times, and I'm not sure I get it. So I'm pretty sure you understand what it means. Maybe you could clarify it for me. So the one I'm referring to is when storms are continuous or following closely one after the other, operations will be repeated or will restart back to the highest priority until completed. And then it says the snow and ice control will reset when continuous snow events are experienced. I'm not sure whether you're repeating everything in the second sentence in a shorter sentence, or whether it means two different things. I really am confused by that.
Okay, we can rephrase that, but what it means is if we happen to be doing our priority ones, which is down, we'll use 50th Street, and we're cleaning that, and there was no snow within an 8-hour, and then all of a sudden we had another dump, we were going to move on to a different priority. We wouldn't do that. We would go back to priority 1 because we just had a fresh snowfall. So we reset. Say we were say we were working in a priority 3 area, and then we had a snow dump, we would stop that priority 3. We would then go back to priority 1. That's what that means. So we'll rephrase it better so that it's clear. So that paragraph can be a little clearer on that.
I almost think the second sentence in that paragraph says what you just said.
Yeah.
I do not. And my final question is just one for information. Where is it announced or told to residents where the rock chips are going to be located? Is that on social media? Is it in the paper also? Where is it located?
We've done it a couple of different ways. It's on the website, but I believe we posted it on put it in the newspaper at the beginning of season. But if it isn't frequently enough, we can look at enhancing that.
I would appreciate that, because I do think that comes in very handy with the icy conditions that we do get. So thank you very much again, Ms. Bosa-Kuda.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Committee Member Barnhart. Next is Committee Member Stout, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just actually a couple of the questions I was going to ask have already been asked, so I'll find the next ones. Ms. Bosa-Hudak, the community, I'm just repeating from the policy document here, the community expects the city to deliver a timely, measured and prioritised response to winter weather conditions to support the mobility of people and goods across Belmont. Great statement, and I noticed you reiterated it in your presentation. I'm just curious that it doesn't also say support the mobility of and safety of people. And then I noticed further down in 4C, page 7, that the winter road, sidewalk and trail safety is a cooperative activity between users of the active transportation network and the city. So yeah, I'm how much of this is concerned with the safety of, how much of safety is a priority on this? Could you, I'm sure that it is, but do we need to make it more explicit?
I could do that. I could enhance that. I could add that further in there. The cooperative side of it is basically with reference to the fire hydrants, clearing their sidewalks, people driving with winter tires, not summer tires, that kind of thing. So that was more the cooperative side, but I can enhance that.
Okay, my feeling is that safety should be clearly highlighted as a priority as one of the objectives. Okay, second question, Mr. Chair.
Please go right ahead.
And this was another sentence that puzzled me on page 8, section 5, it's the 4th paragraph, right after the paragraph Councillor Barnhart was talking about. The city will assume no liability whatsoever for damage to obstructions or landscaping of any kind placed without a right of way. Sorry, within a road right of way without a permit. Is it possible to get permits to do that?
Well, there's the issue that we have is some people put out like those penguins, those lights, those fluffy air balloon kind of things on their property and benches and things like that. We have to move them. That's all.
Okay. But reading that, I'd almost wonder if I could have a permit for my
special events. We have special permissions that would occur. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a case where you might permit it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I just wanted you to.
Yeah, moving like a bin or something like that. If they're in the middle of moving, they had to put the bin across the boulevard to get, you know, the furniture in there, that kind of thing. We have special permits that we issue for those things.
Okay, thank you. So there might be cases where, and so, all right, in that case, if it is permitted, then I assume that the city may be liable if damage were to occur.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the clarification.
Thank you, Committee Member Stout. Committee Member Van Newkirk, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I kind of got three themes to the questions tonight. One of them, I'm going to just pony off of Councillor Stout's last comments in that sentence. The idea where it says no liability whatsoever. When I read that, I wondered if the Section 5 guidelines, if it deserved a section on damages. And the reason I say that is because I've seen you know, damages to sod, or, you know, heaven forbid, damages to people's vehicle, whatever could happen. I just think this policy probably deserves a section in that number 5 that's titled damages and a paragraph on that. So I don't know if admin thinks that might be a good addition or not, or yeah, so and see what you come up with, right? Like, you know, council will see it again. So yeah, thank you for taking that suggestion. And then moving down in that same section, we do have a section on parking bans, and just want to just quiz you out a little bit on that. You know, have we actually ticketed and towed? And you know, we're saying that we will, but have we? I know we try to take an education approach as much as we can, but I know operationally vehicles in the way of this activity becomes very difficult. So
I'd have to leave that up to ME because we involve them. But what we've been doing lately is we do have bylaw officers going out and putting notices on, you're in the middle of, you know, that kind of thing. This allows us the freedom if ME puts in a different kind of bylaw that we can do that. Right now we are being in education. We knock on people's doors. We do those kinds of things currently.
Yeah, and you know, the reason I asked that is because in regional conversations, you know, there is other municipalities that have municipal enforcement and a fleet of tow trucks ahead of the machines, and you know, that's what it's taken to, you know, make sure that there's effective clearing and whatnot. So I know we don't have that coordinated an approach, because I would have seen pictures of it on social media by now. But you know, beyond that, you know, I think if we're writing it, we need to be prepared to do it. So yeah. And then my last train of thought is more operational, and I really like how right at the beginning you referenced the operational plan, and you know exactly how you do things, and you know, I don't like echoing the sentiments all the time, but this is one where we need to. You know, a good job and a great job was done on snow removal this year. You know, the only comments that have come from that have been around timelines. You know, whether it's a timeline of a window removal or a timeline of a snow pile removal, and I think you've heard that. The other comment that I had got. And I actually heard it from both sides of the equation, is just with the City Hall and BSRC not being cleaned sooner. And I know the optics around that, from, you know, you go to your own street first or your own place first before the municipality. I know the optics around that are not often well, but I do think that effort should be made to have, you know, the city facilities more presentable in a shorter timeline. So, and I know that's an operational question and we're talking about a policy. You know, I took advantage of that, but it needed to be said. So thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Van Newkirk. Next would be Committee Member Munkoff-Swain, please. You have the floor.
Chair, just a quick question around the budgetary impact of this. Now, obviously, when we have our budget, we go through and we look at service levels and all that sort of stuff. So I get there is going to be a policy, but I just help me understand how us eventually approving a policy outside the budget process, which is going to impact the budget process. Can you just talk me through how that jives?
The policy that's here doesn't have a financial impact. Where you're going to have is it's at when we approve the service level maps during your budget process. That's where we would have to take a look at the financial piece. So the policy itself is open enough to allow for that. So it's kind of a separate component, if that's clear.
So it is now. You're saying that you've got enough. The policy is the high level concept. You've got enough wiggle room in there that if we approve the policy, it's not going to commit us to anything. But to Councillor Hendrick's point, when we want to look at particular service levels, we'll still have that in budget. What I don't want to do is approve a policy down the road and then come back at budget and you guys will actually we can't change that piece of the policy because we can't actually change that service level because of the policy you approved in August. It doesn't allow us to do that. So I just wanted to make sure there was enough wiggle room. So at budget time, if we want to increase or decrease the service levels, we've got that room to be able to do that.
And the mechanism also is if there's a significant change, we've put the schedules together so it's a swap out. So that the policy document references the schedules and that's where we would make the change. So if there is significant, if there's a significant change, so it's drafted in a way that's an easy move in and out of.
Yep, thank you. That's all I had, Chair.
Thank you, Committee Member Munkoff-Swain. Are there any other committee members asking questions of our presenter this evening on this topic? None being, I will have a couple of closing comments then. I will echo committee members' comments from the general public. A lot of very happy people with this year's snow removal. I know our own cul-de-sac, for example, the snow was almost gone. Even the toothpick races used to be happening, weren't happening. The snow was gone so quickly. So a lot of good kudos to administration on this change in approach, and a lot of very happy residents because of this change. So I have read the council, our committee members' tone on this. We have a couple of amendments to make. So I will propose a motion for a committee member to propose, if it would be as follows. Would you please post it on the chat site? That being that the committee refer council policy C46, snow and ice removal control policy, to council with the discuss amendments for council approval. Is there a committee member willing to make that motion, please? Committee Member Barnhart?
So moved, Committee Chair.
Thank you. Discuss on the motion, please. Seeing none, second question on the motion? Seeing none, I'll ask you to vote, please, on the motion before you. That carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Ms. Bozahuda, for your presentation this evening. Thank you. Committee member will move on to 3B, Land Management Policy. Our presenter will be Rob Mackin, Economic Development Director, and Matthew Groton, Senior Planner, will present the request for decision. Gentlemen, you have the floor. Councilor Hendricks, sorry.
Chair, at this point, I suggest that I'd like to declare pecuniary interest under Section 172 of the Municipal Government Act. I wish to declare pecuniary interest on this matter. My pecuniary interest is embedded with the relationship my company, Hendricks Construction Limited, has with the Development Company actively working in the Centerville site area.
So noted. Thank you, Hendricks, for that disclosure. And we will text you when you can join the meeting again, or we'll send you a quick chat notice. So please watch your screen or watch your phone for a text, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen if that's all right. There we go. So thank you, Mr. Chair. We have for your consideration today a draft land management policy, which I will provide an overview. Following that, Mr. Mackin will outline the recommended next steps. In May 2020, Council passed a motion directing administration to establish a council policy to guide land transactions and management of land assets. and to develop a strategy to guide land acquisition. As you can imagine, and from the previous presentations, a lot has happened in the past 11 months or so. So we are coming back to you now with this. So in general, our proposed approach has these three components. So a land management policy can direct the management of land assets from the broad conceptual objectives to the day-to-day operations for which council and administration are authorized to act. The draft policy for Beaumont is written at a fairly high level with the expectation that more detailed guidance will be provided through administrative procedures and through a land strategy and annual reporting. So administrative procedures or directives typically outline more detailed procedures for informing and executing land transactions in accordance with applicable council policy. Whereas the land strategy typically looks at actual land requirements for acquisition, management, and disposal. These strategies are typically kept confidential in order to protect the negotiating ability and other interests of the municipality. Some of the highlights of the policy include an outline of responsibilities. For instance, administration makes recommendations to council on land transactions. It ensures that standards and legislative requirements are met. It also executes decisions on land transactions, and then periodically reviews the city's land holdings. And of course, council will hear and approve any of these transactions. In terms of acquisition guidelines, this can mean purchasing or land transfers to the city. The city acquires land to support approved council policies, strategies, priorities, programs, and projects. It will do so at the lowest possible cost and with the goal of acquiring land early enough to support city needs over the long term and at the most efficient cost to the city. In terms of disposition or sale guidelines, there may be times when city-owned land is found to be surplus to requirements if it is no longer in alignment with strategies or policies, or cannot be transferred to another department or business area. Therefore, it can be sold to another party. Proceeds from land sales will generally be directed to reserves unless otherwise directed by council. Disposition of that land, if it happens to be at less than market value, or if there are municipal or environmental reserves involved, there are different procedures under the MGA, the Municipal Government Act. This was added just to highlight this for purpose of clarity.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ongoing use guidelines. If city land is not needed for immediate use, it can be leased, typically with the goal of generating revenue. Fair market value will be sought unless for a school board, nonprofit, or similar organization. And finally, reporting. Administration will present to council a confidential assessment of the city's land, including current land holdings and value, projected land requirements, current and long-term identified purpose of current land holdings, and a list of land transactions within the reporting period. I will pass it over to Mr. Mackin now.
Thanks, Matthew. So council, as far as next steps go, we, as Matthew mentioned, we want to take your feedback tonight and incorporate that into the final policy. Again, this policy would then come back to council at the next available meeting to get it approved. And then we really will start developing the administrative procedures to build out how we would implement the policy from a day-to-day perspective, and also build out the land strategy, which was referenced. And this is slated to come back in Q1 for council's approval. That strategy, as mentioned, is key in the sense that it's going to be strategic in nature, that in camera discuss, and we get a full wholesome view of the assets that the city has and the areas that and the items that need to be targeted over what period of time. We believe that by breaking it into those two steps, we'll be able to make sure that we can implement it quicker and then get to that end goal of regular reporting back to council while still meeting the long-term needs of the city. So at this point in time, really the recommended direction we have in front of you is to receive the draft land management policy and report as information or refer to council for approval. So we welcome any questions. And I think I may, if council just tonight, it was also instrumental. It's a combination of the work of economic development and planning and development to bring this forward, because it's something that we believe it's holistic to the long-term growth of the city and the importance, and it takes the departments to build that strategy as well as how we plan to implement it administratively. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Are there any members of the committees with questions for our presenters? First on the docket will be Committee Member Van Newkirk, please. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to admin for the presentation. I got kind of two question streams. The first one just continues on the land strategy piece that Mr. Mackin referred to. I don't see the land strategy referred to in the policy. Is there any reason for, unless I missed it, but is there any reason for that? The RFD does talk about the land strategy, and then you verbally let us know that you're going to make a land strategy, but the policy doesn't refer to having a land strategy or how that land strategy would be managed or how often it might be reviewed or those types of things that might be included in the policy. Just if you could speak to that. Thank you.
Sure, if I might. I think we can probably include that in the reporting section, just to prepare a land strategy. I think it'll be part of the report back to council.
And the strategy is something that would be on, obviously it doesn't get updated frequently, but a policy is more overarching and based upon council priorities or, more macro needs, there may be a need to review the strategy. So the reporting is probably the best approach.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's probably bang on, is that, the timelines and such might not be included, but the fact that if it does exist, it needs to be reviewed like that. That if that idea gets in there, I think that would probably be helpful. That's great. And then the second question is just around the disposition section. And I was trying to think of scenarios there, just what else might happen, in that 2A. It's private party, real estate, public tender, public auction, or any other method. But what isn't clear in here, and again, maybe this isn't the place for the policy, but how would this policy guide the handling of unsolicited offers for city property? So if someone came with a offer in hand to buy a piece of city property, a piece of land or something like that, would this or could this or should this policy guide how that would be handled? Specifically, would administration just look at that and yay or nay it, or would that go to council for a council decision? I just, how might that be handled?
I'll start.
I was going to say, tip of my tongue.
So my impression would be that any proposition would be put to administration for evaluation first, and then presented to council for a decision.
Exactly. It's a part of that whole land strategy. Once the strategy is developed, we'll be able to understand, does it align with what the strategy is? And if so, to provide, execute appropriately. But that strategy is going to be that key to say, does it align with what the goals are or the needs?
Yeah, so I guess my question specifically would be, does that deserve words somewhere in this policy? I don't know where it could go, whether it's, becomes part of the strategy would be like acquisition, but you could strategically dispose as well, right? So the strategy can work on both ends of deals, I would say. But anyways, maybe if you wouldn't mind reflecting on whether or not the idea of unsolicited offers, if it belongs in the policy, just ideas. I'm just trying to think of this from all angles. So That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, any answer response back from our presenters on that last comment? We're good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from committee members to our presenters on the land management policy? Okay, seeing none, I have no comments of my own or questions as chair. I will then offer a suggested motion to our committee members to consider, which is that the committee refer the land management policy to council, the recommendation that council approve the policy. Or please post that, city clerk. Or is there a member of the committee who wants to make their own motion in regard to this particular policy? Mayor Stewart, do you have a comment or thought?
I'm more than happy to make the motion that's on the floor, if you wish.
Thank you very much. City clerk, can you take, okay, you got both motions on the queue. Erase the one that's not applicable. Any question on the motion? And the motion being that the committee refer the land management policy to council, recommendation that council approve the policy. Ready for the question? All those in favor? Let us pass unanimously. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you for your presentation this evening. I'll take a brief moment to invite Councillor Hendricks back into our meeting. I'll just send him a chat message here. Councillor Hendricks, he's on. Great. Thank you.
It's right out of Star Trek.
Thank you very much. Beam me up, Barry. Okay, next order of business is 3D, the draft 2020 report to the community. Will be presented by Mr. Mike Berezowski, Director of Communications. Mr. Berezowski, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening to you, members of the committee and the public. Before you tonight is the draft 2020 report to the public for feedback and to be received as information. This document is prepared yearly to detail activities and accomplishments of council and city administration under the strategic management plan. 2020 was an anomalous year due to the pandemic. For example, the city wasn't able to host public events and administration had to be creative when conducting public engagement. However, the outcomes in the report demonstrate the resiliency of council and city administration, along with the determination and dedication of city employees to improving the quality of life for Beaumont citizens. In short, a lot of excellent work was done even with the pandemic and provincial health measures, challenging the way that we work and imposing additional and ever-evolving priorities for the organization. The next steps with the report will be to finalize it, translate it to French, and post it publicly on the city's website. Some communications activity will also take place to highlight some of the key accomplishments in 2020. Thank you.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Berezowski, for the presentation. Much appreciated. Are there members of the committee with questions for Mr. Berezowski on the report to the community? Committee Member Barnhart, you have the floor as first speaker, followed by Committee Member Stewart, and then Committee Member Hendricks.
Thank you, Chair Daniluk, and thank you very much, Mr. Berezowski. It looks great. I just have a few questions. Well, yeah, I think it's actually just one question at this point. And it's my lack of memory, I think, here. Mm-hmm. Did we actually set a time limit on our vision for Beaumont? As it states on page 31 of 46, it says our vision 2044. Because I'm not used to seeing that as a vision is limited to a time. So I wonder if I'm just missing it, just forgetting it.
You know, I'm I'm not sure. I wasn't involved with the development of that vision, and that's something I'd have to look into. I don't know how that was developed and what the terms were around that.
It's the only place I found in the report that it mentions 2044. So just in case there are questions, if you could clarify that for us, I would appreciate it. And I guess just overall, I wanted to say I'm also very pleased that we state right in the RFD that this is going to be available in French and English. And I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Barnhart. Next would be Committee Member Stewart, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I don't really have any specific questions about the document, but I did take a very thorough read of it, and I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Beresowski and the comms team for putting it together. It came together really well. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just a moment, please. Sam, you have your hand up? Or you want to speak at the end? You want to speak?
And my real hand up. Whenever it's ready, I'd love to speak.
Okay, I've got you. I have Councillor Hendricks, then followed by Committee Member Van Newkirk, followed by you, Sam. Councillor Hendricks, you have the floor.
Thank you. And again, same compliments regarding the document. A couple minor things for me. Page 36 of 46. If there's some strategic way of sorting out the strategic pillars for change versus the picture. And then the other one was just on page 40, 46. Perhaps just the color, the yellow, it's tough to actually pick up the wording on the bottom.
Okay, and that's just to clarify, because I'm looking at the document in a different way. Is that the regional collaboration and leadership section?
Yes, so that's, I guess, page 12 of the document. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say page 8.
Yeah.
And then page 12.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then page 11 is the only known picture of the mayor with glasses. So
I did see that. That was from
it's all coming together now.
A while back.
It's all making sense now.
We had to improvise a bit this past year with the report with some of the photos because we didn't have the public events in previous years, but fortunately we did have enough to draw from, and we did have some things that took place before the pandemic was declared. So
it's nice to see he's got a stunt double, so that's good.
maybe it's Clark Kent.
That's right.
Well, better not be Lois Lane, that's for sure. Better be Clark Kent. Sure. All right, thank you. Next question comes from Committee Member Van Newkirk, followed by Committee Member Monkoff-Swain. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Really good document, and good catch, Councillor Hendricks, on the words over the heads there. As I didn't know what you're talking about, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see what you mean there. So that's great, and you know, it's important to look at it from a lot of different angles. The first one is more of a awareness piece, I guess, on page 37 of 46. We just got done talking about a snow and ice control policy, and we will note that the largest number of concerns came in through the residents. At 114 was snow and ice concerns. So that was something that stood out to me, and it highlights the importance of, you know, why that policy was in front of us and the changes that were made to the operational strategy around that. So that's great. Second question is a little more of a details question, and on page 45 of 46, when we were talking in the diversity and cultural heritage section, I recall an event at the library, and Leela Hare was there, and there was a tent set up with traditional items and such, and there was a lot of education that was occurring there, and I can't recall from the list provided here if that event is included in that list or not.
That was Cultural Days, and it was a library event. The photo, though, you may notice the photo of yourself, Councillor Daniluk, and Minister here there.
Yeah.
But if it's desired, I think we can include that. It's a library event, so.
Okay, so that might have been the differentiation there. Okay, yeah, I'll leave that to your discretion. I was just trying to think of the events that I had went to that, you know, surrounded the different things, and it popped into my mind. So yeah, Chair, that's all I had to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Van Newkirk. Committee Member Monkoff-Swain, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Committee Chair. Just to Mr. Beresowski, great document. I love reading this every year. I always wish that more and more folks would read it, and I know you'll do your best to try to spread the word. I just had a comment on the the land acknowledgement piece. So that's on page 2 of the report. And this is more of a general comment that I think we need to consider. We talk a lot about Treaty 6, and then we include, when we talk about it there, we talk about First Nation, Métis, and Inuit within Treaty 6. So I know you're aware of this, but Treaty 6 is respected from a First Nations perspective. And so, when we're acknowledging the treaty, we also need to acknowledge that we're on the Métis homeland. And so just by acknowledging Treaty 6 doesn't mean that we're recognizing the traditional territory of the Métis people as well. So just nuance, I won't get into it here with you, but just I want us to make that change in this document and going forward when we're opening up all of our meetings, that we're welcoming folks to the traditional territory of Treaty 6 and the homeland of the Métis. Just an important nuance there that I'll leave with you. Thank you.
Excellent comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Monkoff Swain. And lastly, our next speaker will be Committee Member Stout, please. You have the floor, Martin.
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, just re-echoing everything, more or less what everybody else has said. Great looking document, a lot of good information in there. I particularly like the breakdown on page, what is it, 9 of the document, 37 of the package, the breakdown of the Service Beaumont online portal into the different categories. I find that really interesting. I'm just I guess that's just the way my head works. Thanks to but it does help us figure out what some of the bigger issues are. I think. And that, yeah, I won't go any further. Thanks to Councillor Hendricks for pointing out that I had a letter R on my head on page 8. And yes, that was I can confirm that the Cultural Days was a library initiative. And yes, that is because I talked about it at the library board when it first arose. And yes, that is a photograph on page 17 of Councillors Van Newkirk and Dan Luck at that event with Minister Ahern, and on the far side is the library manager. And I think I'm just out of frame on that, but so you've happily avoided putting me in the shot, which is excellent. So yeah, great job. I like the look of it, and yeah, I got to re-echo. It would be great if we could get this to as many people as possible. If as many people as possible could see it and read through it, that would be wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Member Stout. We have one more question, another set of questions, possibly from Committee Member Barnhart. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Daniluk. It's just a bit of an afterthought here. Mr. Berezowski, when does the 2021 annual report actually get printed? So that will be April of 2022 before we'll see that? Is that
correct?
Kind of,
yeah.
or is this one later than usual, or this is?
No, this one is it's spring, so April typically, I believe. The one anomaly was last year. The 2019 annual report came out in the fall just because of the pandemic, and the activation of the ECC changed our priorities for that year. But this is typically, I believe, the time that it would be done. So the 2021 will be in April of 2022.
There's so many really exciting projects going on right now. I'm kind of disappointed that we have to actually wait until that long. One of the ones that stands out to me from like social needs and dealing with the pandemic, of course, all of that, but also affordable housing and the initiative that we're working on. So I guess there's not much we can do about that, but it is a little bit unfortunate that we can't get something out as kind of this is what was accomplished during a really difficult time.
Well, and there's still some opportunities. You know, the age-friendly strategy, I believe you're talking about, and also the social master plan. I think there will be some opportunities to use some communications around those, depending on timing too, and the scheduling of the next communique. There may be some opportunities to highlight those initiatives. And of course, with some of the capital projects too, we'll be planning some activities around those to highlight those, because there's some fantastic things happening in the community this year, and we don't want to lose sight of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you very much. I appreciate anything you can do to get the word out about what is really wonderful things that are happening. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions for our presenter this evening on this particular topic of the community report? Seeing none, a couple comments of my own, if I could please, as chair. Simply phenomenal work, awesome content, great presentation. It looks great. It reads well. Information overload almost in terms of what's in there. It's fantastic. And on a personal note, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of council as well, Mike, since you've joined our little family of employees here at City of Beaumont, our communications content and quality has improved dramatically. And this document is a testament to that work you've been doing with your people there. So much appreciated. It's fantastic work, and I'm looking forward to the committee, the citizens of Beaumont looking at this document and being equally impressed, I'm sure. With that, no further questions. I will suggest a motion for committee to consider, which is that the committee receive the draft 2020 report to the community as information and refer the report to administration to be translated and released to the public. Would you please post that motion, City Clerk? Is there a member of the committee willing to make that motion or have a motion of their own they wish to make in this regard? Councillor Hendricks. Sorry, you're on mute, Perry. Sorry.
So I'd like to make the motion, but also ask a question. In terms of releasing it to the public, is this a mailer?
It hasn't. I don't know what's been done in the past. In the last couple of years, it hasn't been printed and sent out. Highlights of it would be included in the newspaper and in the communique mail out that would refer people to the full report.
Is there, given the way we do mass mailings, and really it's not a lot of money, could we not get it out that way to ensure that it gets to every household?
It's something that I can certainly take a look at. It shouldn't be too cost prohibitive. That would be a possibility. I guess my question back would be, would it be the desire that it also include the French translation as well for the mail out?
Yeah, I think so. I think this document is worthy of that effort. And it's not everybody is tied to the website and finding their way back to the website. But certainly, especially a lot of the other generations, boomers and us, we still like to grab paper but then we could say it did get to every household. I think it's important, and given what's in here, I think that would be important. Then we know we've hit the target market, which is supposed to be everybody. So
I think that's something we can certainly explore, and it should be possible. So
sure, great. So
Thank
I make
you,
the motion.
Hendricks. He has made the motion. Thank you very much. I guess a point of process then, City Clerk or CAO Schwartz, possibly. Do we need to amend the motion to incorporate delivery of methodology, or just the motion is fine the way it is? We can have the report come back to council with a recommendation on delivery and distribution. What's the best way to proceed based on Councillor Hendricks' suggestion, please? Is there a need to amend the motion or not?
I don't think there's a need to amend the motion. As it's written, it says to release to the public, and we just got a desire to print it. But I would ask the question, if there's anybody who objects to that, that'd be worth having that discussion. We didn't print it the last couple of years because it was, costly and we didn't see a whole lot of uptake. But if we're going to turn around and deliberately mail it out to different places, which is what I'm hearing, then that's what we'll do.
Okay, I'll call for discussion on the motion and incorporating CEO Schwartz's comments. Let's talk first of all about distribution then as part of the motion discussion, please. Any comments from committee members on distribution as outlined a few minutes ago? Councillor Muckhoff-Swing, you have the floor first, followed by Councillor Stout.
Yeah, personally, I think if 20-page document times 2 sent out of the mail, I don't know the numbers behind that. Certainly the environmental footprint behind that times however many thousand households. I'm not a huge fan of it. I recognize that we've got the communique that does go out and can reference going back to it. How many people will actually click on that? Another option, I would recommend putting a QR code on that communique so that people can just quickly scan their thing and pop up the thing right away as opposed to them having to search for it. But I'm not opposed to it. But if I was asked to vote, I wouldn't want to send it out to every resident in town.
Thank you. Committee Member Stout, you have the floor, please. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would support a mail out of that. It would be cost dependent as long as the cost is not prohibitive. Particularly, I know we didn't do this in previous years, but you know, this is not a normal year. I think this would be the year to be doing it, and also to recognise that if what I read recently was in that report, in fact, I think about the uptake of Facebook viewing and so on within the community, it tells me that there's at least half our community who aren't doing that, or are unable or unwilling, or whatever the reason is. So I would like some other way to communicate with them, and I think this year this would be the appropriate way to do it.
Thank you, Committee Member Stout. Appreciate that. Committee Member Van Newkirk, please, you have the floor.
Yeah, just kind of a comment, I guess, to Mr. Berezowski around the distribution of that. You know, this might be an opportune time, you know, given the you know, struggles of gathering that we've had over the last year, of maybe reaching directly out to user groups and community groups a little bit too, and you know, providing even the electronic link to them to distribute to their membership. You know, that might be, that little bit of extra effort might be also welcomed. I'm not opposed to the mail out. The one piece I'm struggling with is the mailing of 2 physicals. It would be really great if we could, you know, determine if, you know, someone wanted an English or a French. You know, I understand why we would want to send both, but in the same breath, you know, sometimes I'm thinking of a manual. You know, you grab one and keep the other, and that's the struggle there. And I know there isn't a feasible way to solve that problem. So I do know that this year, you know, the lack of people being able to get together, and you know, we can't even take a stack of these and go and set them in different places, because that's not what we're doing right now. So you know, for those reasons, I would support the mail out this year. I would question it moving forward, though, as other community restrictions are loosened. So thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Barnhart, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, just a quick idea. Thank you, Committee Chair. Mr. Berezowski, have we ever put a French and an English upside down? You know how some documents come from the federal government where you have the first half is in English, and then you turn it upside down and the back half is in French. So the back cover is French.
I don't know if that's been done in the past, but that's what I was contemplating for that, if we were to do a mail out. And just to clarify too, I would look at a couple of options for distribution, whether mail out or an insert in the newspaper is more economically feasible. It's quite likely that an insert in the newspaper would be probably the less costly method.
Yeah, Mr. Berezowski, I often hear from people, they don't always get their newspaper, and it depends on who's delivering in their area. So that's a little iffy. I kind of think that this year, because of COVID and other reasons, we do it by mail. My thoughts.
I haven't costed it out, but a mail out of that size would be probably quite costly.
Okay. Thank you, Committee Member Barnhart. Committee Member Stout, your hand's up again. Do you have a follow-up comment, or is that a hand from the previous discussion? I lost you there. Did it scare you off?
Yeah, you scared me off. No, it's just button confusion, as you can probably guess. I didn't lower it down. There we go. No, okay. I'll shut up.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I have no further comments on the distribution thing. I do believe our motion is fine the way it is. Would you agree, Mr. Schwartz? We have enough direction on the discussion on the distribution. We need to amend the motion. Thank you very much. All right. No further questions. I will call for the question on the motion. Do you require to be read again, anybody? It's in the chat room there. We're good. Okay, I will call the question, please. And that passes unanimously. Mr. Berezowski, thank you for your presentation, and thank you, Council, committee members, for approving the motion on the community report to the community. Thank you. Next, do we have on our agenda, we have closed session. I believe we already have dealt with that for today. Is there any need for closed session any further? I didn't think so. Thank you. We already had council inquiries earlier this evening with the council meeting. I'm assuming we're fine there. Information items from anybody? Oh, pardon me. Councilor Barnhart, I just saw your hand. Pardon me. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, Councillor Daniluk, Chair Daniluk. I would like to ask a question of the administration if I could.
Please go right ahead.
Slow on the draw and I didn't get it out at council, if I may. It's okay to go ahead now with that? Yes?
Please go right ahead. Yes.
Okay, sorry. So when a few weeks ago, I was approached by some residents about the construction project sign that was put up in Milieu Park in Colonial Estates. And I did forward a heads up to Mr. Dowler. I think Mr. Schwartz was on a few days off that week. And I haven't heard back. And but I think it was more of a heads up that I was going to ask it, which is why I didn't hear back. So I wonder, I went on the project dashboard, and for the life of me, I can't find what is happening in that park. And yet there's a big sign up there and it refers you to that website. So I don't know what I'm missing, but if Mr. Schwartz or Mr. Dowler could point me in the right direction, I've yet to get back to those citizens about their questions. So I would like to do that.
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Barnhart. I don't have the answer off the top of my head. I believe it's drainage in Milieu Park as it is some ball diamond reclamation. I'm not sure what trouble you're having, but I'm not saying you're not, because I haven't tried. I've been told if you go to the website, it will point you in the right direction. But let me see clarification tomorrow and I'll send by email. Either we're missing a link or there's an easier way to get there. We've actually been receiving a lot of positive feedback on those signs. So I haven't purposely tried to follow the direction. So I can understand where you're coming from, but let me get back to you.
Okay, I appreciate it. And it was a question around the scope of the project. So it may be that it's talking about something on one side of the park and their issue is on the other side of the park. Their question was, what's in scope there? Because it seemed to make sense if we're doing one part of it, that we do another part.
Yeah.
And I had explained that to Mr. Dowler. Thank you.
Just another easy recommendation on that. Slap a QR code on the sign. The amount of people that walk up to it, they can just scan their phone on it, take them to the website, and link it to the project. So super easy to do. Yes, Councillor Barnhart, we've got a lot of questions about that particular project as well. So project I'll use very loosely, but yeah, QR codes, people walking by, easy to do. I know Barry's asking you to get on that.
Is there not a QR code on that sign, Councillor Montgomery? I thought we had them on all of them.
There may be one because they were up looking at it, but they couldn't get what they needed from it. So I don't know if it just wasn't working, but I certainly can't even find it when I go on the project dashboard.
Yeah, because it goes to the capital project side of things and it's very generic, right? And you've got to know that it's a maintenance or an operations project.
Operational, yeah.
Which is why it's just a little bit I know, easier said than done. Yeah.
Okay. Let me follow up.
A suggestion. Thank you, Committee Member Barnhart. Are there any further council inquiries before I move on to the next item? Thank you. Any information items from a committee member or from administration? Seeing none. Item 7, emerging issues. Any emerging issues from committee members or from administration? All right, seeing none. The last item is adjournment. With that, I will declare the meeting closed, the committee of the whole for April 20th. Thank you, committee members. Enjoy your evening and thank you to the public for listening in. Thank you.